Do you often wonder how to navigate God's perfect will versus his permissive will in a marriage relationship? How do you determine which path you're on? In today's episode, we're going to discover just how. Hello, welcome to another episode of Marriage Hacks with Joseph
and Miriam,
with real talk,
real solutions
for a healthy, thriving marriage. All right, so today's episode, we're moving away from our preemptive P's for this episode. And this episode was inspired by a supporter, Melissa Neal,
who's also a church member.
Yeah, she's also our church member, and she tagged us in this video from tonight's conversation, live and uncut. And so they were talking about this very topic as far as marrying someone outside of God's perfect will. So as we always do,
just for the sake of being married.
Yeah, just for the sake of being married. And as we always do, we're going to start with our scriptures. And the first scripture,
we only have two of them.
Yeah, we only have two today. And the first scripture is Mark 10:9, King James Version. What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. And Miriam, you want to do the second one?
Okay. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go into my maid. It may be that I may obtain children through her. And Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarai. You know he was going to go get some for somebody else. That's all that was.
Now, there are consequences of choosing God's permissive will over his perfect will.
Whenever I read or hear about the story of Sarai, Abram, and her telling him to go into Hagar, that always reminds me of sometimes God makes us promises and we decide it's not happening fast enough, or we don't necessarily believe it, or we're going to help God along. And we wind up messing it completely up.
Yeah, I also thought about one of our previous episodes when I had made a statement. I said sometimes when it seems like things are moving smoothly without any hitch, then that could be a good indication that you are in God's will.
I remember that. That was like our first or second video.
Yeah, and Miriam stopped me mid-sentence and said, hold on, wait a minute. And the story of Abram and Sarai and their handmaiden Hagar is a perfect example, because what Sarai was trying to do was to go the path of least resistance. And so God's will caused them to have to deal with their own doubts about the situation and their own abilities. And so I feel like maybe Sarah in this case was leaning more towards her own strength, her own strengths and her own abilities, because she said that maybe God will give her children through Hagar, her handmaiden. And so,
but that's not what God said.
Yes,
and he told him, I'm going to give you a child from flesh of your flesh and bone of your bone, and that's from his wife. But she couldn't believe it. It's also like you think of Job's wife. When all the people, his friends came to him, curse God and die, and even his wife said, curse God and die. Wait a minute, we're looking at all the scriptures where the women are wrong.
No, no.
But you can't, it's hard, especially in this Christian walk. It is just so hard. God makes you a promise. He tells you something, and you think to yourself, oh, okay. And you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait. But the way you choose to do it is not the way God chooses to do it. And oftentimes when we do that, we do what his wife did, sent him to another woman, but that's not what God said. And in the process, it created a family feud that's been going on for thousands of years now. So
Yeah, what you have to really think about is a lot of times heaven's choice requires faith and perseverance. Because when I first met Miriam, and I knew that Miriam was the one because I prayed, and when I met her, literally every box was checked. But see, I knew that, but Miriam didn't know that. So it took some time and persuasion for Miriam to come about to what I already knew. Now, I could have chosen a path of least resistance and went after someone who, as soon as I said, oh, you're supposed to be my wife, oh, okay, without any hesitation, and I could have been in a world of trouble, you know. But God's choice for me required perseverance.
Jason.
Yeah. And for me to hold on to my faith.
He had to wear me down, y'all.
Yes, but it was worth it because I know that with the woman that I have, I'm in God's perfect plan. Now we're going to go through some bullet points. And
okay, there are 5 of them. As always, I always outline our bullet points. Spiritual misalignment. 2, conflict in decision making and difference in values. 3, differing financial habits. 4, chronic stress and anxiety. And 5, marital and sexual expectations. Now, when we go over all these, Joe, I don't want people to think just because if you hit all these things and they're perfect, that life is going to be la 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 and perfect, because it's not. Even when God has said you're supposed to be with this person, you're still going to have issues.
Yes.
Because we're not perfect. We don't claim to be perfect. And God's going to make sure that we know that we're not perfect. And we still have to work through things. There may be like one area that Joe and I dealt with when we first got married was time, being on time. My daddy used to say, if you're less than 15 minutes early, you're late. That man may just put it in me, be on time, be on time, be on time. And one particular time I remember I was about maybe 20, 21, 20. No, I was out of college. So I was about 25, 26. And Daddy was going to have some brakes put on my car. And he said, be there, meet me at our house at 11 o'clock. I'm pulling up at 11 o'clock. And Daddy's going up the street leaving me. And I caught up with him. And I said, Daddy, you said 11 o'clock. Why did you leave me? And he said, would you get to an airport at 11 o'clock? If the plane was supposed to leave at 11 o'clock. That stayed with me. And I ingrained that into my kids too. We used to get everywhere early. Mama, we're tired of being the first people there. I told them, you never know what the traffic's going to be. You never know if this is going to happen. You never know if you're going to have this distraction. And when we first got married, Joe did everything on CP time. Let's just put it out there. Am I lying? Tell the truth and shame the devil.
she's not lying.
And we first started the carpet and upholstery cleaning business that I told you about. And I say, Joe, I told him you're going to be there at 9:30. Joe would get there at 9:15, 9:40, 9:45, and the person wouldn't be there. And I said, Joe, that's because I told him you were going to be here at 9:30. And it took a while to break him of that. So that was one of the marital things that we had to deal with in the beginning. My obsessive punctuality and his obsessive not being punctual. I guess that's the way you can put it, or constantly being late. There are things that you're still going to have to work on in a marriage because you are two completely different people coming into a marital situation.
Yes, we want people to also understand that just because you may not have, maybe your marriage situation is maybe God's permissive will, but don't think because that is the case that you need to get a divorce.
Right.
No, because remember, all things work together for the good of those that love the Lord and are called according to His purpose. Because God can make that situation work. As long as you have two willing people in that marriage, God can make it work. Now, this is the point that we're making right here. It says, before we get into the bullet points, marrying outside of God's perfect will set you up for a higher probability of failure due to and these bullet points that we're going to be going through. Okay? And yes, the first one is spiritual misalignment or being unequally yoked. So just think about it. If you marry someone and that you're not spiritually aligned with, maybe you're a Christian and they're Muslim, just an example. You know that's going to cause some issues.
Yes, it is.
Some issues that you would not have if you were spiritually aligned. And we made this point before that both of you could be Christians and can still be unequally yoked.
Yep.
In the way that well, I guess
your belief system.
Yeah, your belief system. Where you are in your spiritual walk. One may be much further along in their spiritual walk than the other person, and it can cause conflict. So you have to know how to navigate that.
Because Joe and I had that issue at different times during the marriage, especially because we went to church before we got married and even after we got married. But then once we received the baptism of the Holy Spirit back in, I think it was early 90 for you and sometime in 91 for me, that's when our Christian walk really changed. And sometimes you get to the point where one person is just really super duper 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 spiritual, and that was Joe at one point. And I was very spiritual, but I was also quite practical. And the two for a long time didn't match because Joe was on the road and I was on the we're all human road. And that is one thing that we had to work out. Now, even though we had to work that out, I wouldn't necessarily call that spiritual misalignment as much as I do call growing in your Christian faith. That's why we want to just make sure that you know that we're not saying that if you don't line up in this way, get a divorce. We don't want it to come across like that.
No, we are in no way promoting divorce. Now, one of the things that stuck out to me in that video that was sent to us, tonight's conversation live and uncut, one of the statements, we have a wife but not having a wife in the spirit, or a husband but not a husband in the spirit. That's very important. Having a spouse in the flesh, that's all well and good, but it's not complete until you have a spouse also in the spirit. Because y'all need to connect in both areas. And so, Miriam, you want to hit the next one? Bullet?
Conflict in decision making because of having different values. And that also goes along with the unequally yoked. I know of people who one is a Seventh-day Adventist and the other one is a Jehovah's Witness. And I never will forget when they got married, I thought to myself, I don't know how this gonna work, but congratulations. Because there are definitely different value systems that come with different religious beliefs. Like you got the Mormons. Mormons are very strict people, but historically Mormons have not, up until 1977, did not let black people into the organization, and still don't let black folk hold high office. So say a Mormon marries, a white Mormon marries a black Christian woman or a Hispanic Christian woman, how is that going to work, knowing the foundations of the church and how the church was built? That goes with spiritual misalignment and being unequally yoked. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, a lot of folk try to say that being unequally yoked means you can't marry outside your color. That's bull crap. God never said that. Okay, go ahead.
Well, having constant conflict in decision making can cause your marriage to have a growth defect. You know, you can own your marriage only grow to a certain point. Mm-hmm. And it's like it can't get past a certain point because of those conflicts in decision making. You know, you guys can't make a decision in certain areas, so therefore you just like you dormant in certain areas. Mm-hmm. You had a stalemate in certain areas because you can't agree. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that will hinder you and the growth of your marriage.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is differing financial habits. Mm-hmm. Now, when Miriam and I got married, Miriam, her spending habits were a whole lot better than mine. You know,
I'm older. Yeah, I had been out on my own.
Yeah.
I knew about paying bills and budgeting and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and so she knew how to save money, she knew how to budget, she knew how to plan and everything. I knew nothing of that. All I knew is I go to work and I get paid.
I want.
Yeah, and I know what I want when I get paid. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much, that was it. And then Miriam was like, hold on, wait a minute.
Hold on, we got to pay this. Yeah. And something that God had me doing even before I got married was I would write down every bill. And I give my sister Dimples credit because I saw her sitting down writing bills, and you know, back in the old days when we had checkbooks. One thing I used to watch her do is something called $7.74. She would write in her check ledger $8. And I would go, but Dimples, it didn't cost $8. And she'd say, round up. If it went over 50 cents, she rounded up to the next dollar. And I did that. Even when I had my first apartment with my friend Cassandra back in 85. Round off, because that way you're going to have some little money left over. That's what my sister Dimples taught me, and that's how I managed a checkbook. And Joe will tell you, you going to buy what? When you get paid? No, this is due, this is due, this is due, and that is due. And the thing I would tell him, after we get our bills paid, if we have something left, then we can go do that.
Oh yeah, I was a big kid. I mean, I was like, hey, I want to buy this Nintendo game.
Oh gosh, that Nintendo was oh Lord, that Nintendo. Oh, that's another story. He wanted that Nintendo, and I was like, well, baby, as soon as we can do the Nintendo, we'll do it. But baby, doing it as soon as we could do it was not fast enough for him. And as soon as I finally was able to save enough money to get that Nintendo, he was like, "Oh, I got my Nintendo." And I'm like, "Oh Lord, we have created a monster." That was funny. Another situation where Joe saw this car he wanted. You remember that white Ford? It wasn't a Focus, because Focus is one around then. Because we're talking like 90.
That Taurus.
Ford Taurus, yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Baby, this Ford Taurus, that does not work in our budget." And you know how even now you still get those papers in the mail. You have been pre-approved for this amount. And I was like, he said, "Well, baby, we can use this money." And I went, "So we're going to borrow money to pay for something, and we got two bills." And they let Joe bring that white Ford Taurus home, and he drove it and all this stuff. And I'm sitting there going, "You ain't getting it." And he was so mad at me. And I don't know what finally convinced him. I said, "Joe, okay, they're saying that they going to give you $4,500. So Joe was like, "We can take this $4,500, put it as a down payment on the white Ford Taurus, Miriam." And I'm going, "But Joe, then that means we got the bill for the $4,500 loan that they given you, then the payment on the Ford Taurus." And I honestly don't know what finally convinced him. Was it that he finally saw it, or me looking at him going, "No, it's not gonna happen"? Which one was it, baby? Do you remember? Because this was back in let's see, we got our first home in 90. So this was back in early 91. Because by that time I was working for Transamerica.
I can't remember. This woman done burst so many of my bubbles that I can't remember.
And I'm still bursting them now.
Yeah, I can't remember. I can't remember. But I knew deep down inside that she knew what was best. And so I would always eventually
give in
to what she was saying. When I would sit down and really think about what she was telling me, and it made sense, I was like, okay, yeah, this is what we need to do.
And that's another thing, another point. Our kids saw me handling the money. And when we homeschooled, the big account that I told you that we had that we lost back in 2013, we would get that paycheck. And part of our homeschooling, on the day that Joe got paid, on I think it was the 15th and the 25th of the month, something like that, the kids and I would go through the house figuring exactly what we needed grocery-wise. I would literally put how much on the board, how much Joe's check was, everything that had to come out of it, taxes, bond, insurance, all that, and show them how much was left. And then we would go, okay, this is what we need grocery-wise. And this went on for the whole time that I homeschooled. Joe and I homeschooled. That's how I taught my kids how to budget, even down to where, you see a smaller can of something and there's the bigger can. I would say, okay, which one are we going to save money on? What if we get 2 cans of pork and beans and they're 12 ounces each can? And but so that's 24 ounces, but the big can is 36 ounces. I would literally have them stand there and figure out, using their math skills, which was the better deal. And now Stephen, our baby, he and Savannah, he takes care of the money. And I've often heard him talk about how we used to do that, and how when he was in Korea, he called me, "Okay, Mama, this is how much money I got, how we're supposed to do it." And then with Hannah and her husband, David takes care of it. Rachel is not yet married, so she takes care of her money. And then Joshua and Naomi, they just kind of do their own thing. But those are just very that financial stuff is important because when you got a spender and you got a saver, ooh, that can be rough. That really can make or break a marriage.
Yes, it can.
It really can. So you really need to find out before you get married what kind of financial person is that person. Is that person a spender? Is that person a saver? Is that person a hoarder when it comes to money? Because there are people who actually hoard money. You got to figure out, and because there's sometimes, there's just so many different things. You just got to sit down and you got to figure it out for yourself between you.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so the next one is chronic stress and anxiety.
Anxiety.
Chronic stress. Now, in every relationship, there's a certain amount. There's always in life. There's going to be a certain amount of stress and anxiety. But in a relationship that a lot of times that is a God's permissive will, there may be more. It may be chronic. There's more of an opportunity for there to be chronic stress and anxiety because of misalignment in certain areas.
And chronic means ongoing. That's basically what you have, a chronic sickness. It's ongoing. Something that you never ever get worked out because you're fighting, kicking against the pricks with each other.
And that's something that you're gonna have to learn to deal with. If you know that, okay, when I married this person, I knew I was making a lot of compromises, but even though you may even knew deep down in your heart
that it wasn't the person for you to marry.
This person is not God's perfect will, but maybe because you were tired of being alone.
Yeah. And that's so sad.
Yeah, you were tired of being alone. You was watching all of your friends get married, and you was like, I want to be married too. This person doesn't have everything on my checklist, but
I can make it work. I can change.
Yeah, but he or she has most of everything on my checklist, and so you compromise, you over compromise, and because of that, your relationship may constantly have issues,
infidelity, money, all those things. And one way to really tell is if you, meaning the husband or the wife, the man or the woman, are the one that's constantly giving in. That's not even a compromise. What we talked about, appeasement. You are constantly saying, okay, baby, okay, baby, okay, baby, okay, baby. And you just let that person run all over you just because you don't want to be alone. And personally, I'd rather be alone than in constant conflict. I'd rather be alone.
And one thing that I like that one of the people said on that video, they was talking about this, the scripture where it says, what God has joined together, let no man tear asunder. He said, well, if God didn't join it together, that's why I said there's a higher probability that you guys could be torn apart because God didn't put it together.
Yeah.
But if God put it together, not saying that
you won't hit bumps in the road.
You won't hit bumps in the road, and that even a marriage that is God's will, sometimes people choose to
do wrong,
to go separate ways.
They do.
But it was a choice that they made. Okay? But just know that if you choose to compromise, appease, that opens the door.
It does.
For conflict and for
anxiety.
your relationship to end. For your relationship to end.
marrying somebody that you know is a cheater. You know that throughout your whole relationship that this man has never been faithful. Or you know throughout your whole relationship that this woman has never been faithful to you. But yet you take that road that I mentioned earlier. I can change them. I can help them do this. I can make them do this. When you're talking to sometimes a really good friend, especially we women, we can be talking to a man about something, and that's the man that God has for us sitting right there. And he is just listening, hoping that you'll open your eyes. And that can happen with a guy too. But you're just thinking, I love him. Oh, he's so fun. Girl, look at that bud. He got money. He got this. He got that. But does he have a heart for you? It's not about changing somebody. It's not about that. And I have seen that happen to so many women, especially women in the church, who are watching all of their friends get married and have babies and all that, and they just decide to make this is the man that I'm going to marry, knowing good and well God did not send that man, because the red flags were waving like I'm fanning this hot flash. The red flags are waving. And the same thing for men too, because Joe has told y'all about the girl that he was in love with before we got involved, and she was all the wrong woman, but he wanted to be with her, and he fought to be with her, and she broke his heart. You know, he can go into more about that if he wants to, but you just got to keep your eyes open. And then when a situation like that doesn't work out, you can't blame God, because God put all the red flags in front of you. But because you were lonely and you just didn't want to be by yourself, and I want to make this work, then you play boo-boo the fool. And then crying out to God, and God is like, I never told you to marry that person. I'm sorry, I know I went off the rails, but that's one of those subjects that's just very, very near and dear to my heart, because I did that when I was younger. You know, before Joe and I met. Joe and I was 27 when Joe and I got married. And I had been through, he was the church boy, I wasn't a church person. But all the things that I had been through, making stuff work because I was in love. And he gonna change. No, you can't change a person. Change comes from within. They have got to want to change.
That's right. And so this next one.
The last one
is marital/sexual expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So we all go into relationships with expectations.
Mm-hmm. Especially women. The white picket fence, the Mr. going to come in, sweep us off our feet. You know, those who are old enough to remember June and Ward Cleaver. The husband coming home and the wife has her pearls and her dress on and the house is perfectly clean, and that ain't real. But you dream about stuff like that, or the Disney princess stuff.
Yeah, I thought about a woman that could cook like Aunt B, but in the bedroom do other things. I mean, I'm just being honest.
Okay.
Just being honest. I'm not cutting that part out, but
no, leave it in there. Leave it in there. We're talking about expectations. Expectations.
Yep.
And that's another thing that goes back to what we were talking about, different financial habits, because there are a lot of men around that want to be taken care of. Mm-hmm. And they expect that woman to go to work, and then she's sitting around going, he won't get a job. Well, hell, you know he wasn't going to work when you married him. Red flag. You know, and I also know some men who just refuse to work. This is my favorite line. I'm waiting for just the right job. For God to send me just the right job. Well, boo-boo, you're not going to find that just the right job sitting on your couch on your AZZ playing video games. You're going to have to get up. But, and then he's going to depend on her for her income. So it goes both ways. That's one of those double-edged swords, so to speak.
What else can we say on that?
The sexual expectations part. And when we did the video on sex, I said you got to be willing to meet that person where they are. You might, without knowing it, you could marry someone with a sexual addiction or a porn addiction, or you could marry a woman who has been molested by her father, molested by her mama's boyfriend, and because of that, you may not have a fulfilling sexual relationship because that's not something that you discussed when everything was going on.
And see what you have to understand too. See, it over a process of time, soul ties.
Yes.
They have to be broken.
Yes.
That's why God's perfect. I'm sorry. That's why God's perfect will
is for us to be virgins.
To us to abstain and be virgins going into our relationship,
into our marriage.
Because everyone that you have joined yourself together with, there was a soul tie made.
Body fluid exchanges.
There was a spiritual tie that was established, and those things have to be broken. I mean, sometimes some of them can be broken before you get married, but there may be some that still remain that have to be broken during your marriage.
Just like what we were talking about, you marry a man that's whorish or a woman that's whorish, and they haven't given up those ways. And you're sitting at home waiting for them. And when that man or that woman comes home to your marital bed, they're bringing all those women or all those men into that bedroom. And there's so much to be compared to. If you don't have anything to compare it to, once two virgins come together, they learn to explore each other's bodies, and they know what each other likes because they took time and experimented. When you're bringing all those soul ties into that bed, especially when you got the that's another spiritual misalignment. You got a Christian person, well, even if you got two Christian people, put it that way, who were promiscuous before they came to Christ. You're going to have to deal with those things that happened in the bed and how they are affecting you now in your marriage.
That's right.
Boy, we went all over the place with this one, didn't we?
We did. Anything else you want to say? Is that it?
No, I think that you chose is it interesting?
Okay.
It was interesting, but it just opened up a big old can of worms that just took us in several different places while still staying, but it took us in several different places. The long and the short of it is, women, don't get involved with somebody because they look good. Men, don't get involved with somebody because they look good. You got to know in your heart during that courtship, praying together, spending time together, if that's who you're supposed to be with. Yes, you're going to have problems because that's what life is. The word says, in this world you shall have tribulations, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. But you've got to be willing to sit down, talk these things out, to find out if that person is the person that God has for you. And it ain't all about what your mama say. I'll just leave that one right there.
And just think about it. God, one of his commandments to us was to be fruitful and multiply. You just think about all these terms that we went over, these things these bullet points that are things that you're going to have to deal with if you are gonna be in a relationship that's a permissive will versus God's perfect will. So you're gonna be multiplying fruit.
Bringing children into that mess.
Yeah, into chronic stress and anxiety. You know, you bringing. Your children are going to grow up in a household where they are constantly witnessing strife and anxiety, and to them, that's going to, because they're constantly going to be seeing that. That's going to make them think that, oh, that's the way.
That's what marriage is supposed to be like.
Supposed to be. We both supposed to be raising
hell. I say the word, he won't.
Double hockey sticks.
Hell.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
But it's not.
Yeah, and you know, and I think that's why a lot of people, they not satisfied until they find somebody
that they can raise hell with.
That they can do that with. If you too subdued and soft spoken and trying to make peace or be at peace, they not gonna want to have anything to do with you. They want to be with somebody that want to raise a little Cain.
Or as some women go, he too nice.
Yeah, he too nice. I want somebody that can.
I like a bad boy.
Yeah, I like the bad boys or bad
and
girls.
that's what you get.
Yeah, and that's what you're gonna get, and your whole life
is gonna be bad. It's gonna be full of turmoil.
Yeah.
But as we said, even if you marry in God's permissive will, then if you marry in his permissive will and you go to him and you ask him for guidance, he can make it work.
Oh yeah, it can work.
He can make it work.
It can work, even though you may have more challenges than usual.
Yeah,
it still can work. God can work in that relationship. Okay, and that concludes our discussion. And as I always do, if there was anything in this discussion that you could relate to and blessed you, please share this video, like and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. And as always, we're going to leave some valuable information,
the commercial,
in our description, books, and the gear that we use for our video channel. And so check it out. And so until the next time,
y'all,
have a blessed day.